My name is Dawid Ostręga. Very often I've gone to conferences and I've looked at guys, who are presenting who have got some kind of a tough time, some kind of disability, and I always thought, oh damn, I got nothing. Finally, I've got something. So yeah, I'm a huge inspiration. No, I mean this is nothing. It's no big deal. Just a little surgery. It's only pain. I'm on painkillers, so I'm kind of excited. This presentation is going to be a little bit different. First of all, it's not really PowerPoint. It's just pictures. So I think that's the first time today. Pictures say 1,000 words, so hopefully the pictures will say a lot, and hopefully you'll remember. The other thing I really want you to open your minds. I'm going to be talking about teams and evolution of teams. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to give you real examples. And I'm going to base it all on an American football team that I'm a head coach of. Now, the problem is very often when we speak about sports, people straight away turn off. Well, that's sports. That's not really business. So I'm going to try and show you where things are relevant and give you real life examples of why this works in sports, why it worked in business, and vice versa. What's nice about sports is that it's a very measurable, short amount of time. You have a season. You either have a good season or a bad season. In business, it's a little bit more difficult. Now, yeah, in theory, you had a good financial year or you didn't, but you could argue that you're investing in the future and so on. So sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to measure. In sports, it's easy. You won a game or you lost a game. So it's a lot easier. Let's start off by who I am. This is just a picture to show that business. I started EPAM in Kraków. EPAM has now expanded into the Tri-City area. So if any of you know of EPAM, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I started it all. What have I done in business? I've built a lot of companies from scratch. I've also taken over situations where they needed a transformation in some way. At heart, I'm an IT guy, like everybody else here. IT is my thing. I used to build server rooms. I used to build systems. I used to build products. It's what I still love to do. But I realized quite early on that I can string a sentence together, which means I can talk to clients. So I decided to move more onto the business side instead of staying just on the technology side. So that's my sort of unique selling point, that I can talk both languages. I can talk a language of technology, and I can talk a language of business. But the one thing that I'm most passionate about, I love technology, but I'm most passionate about people. Every single company, no matter what great product it has, beautiful service, technology, and so on, people are the most important thing, because it's the people that make the products, the people that talk to our customers, and they're the most valuable asset. And it's almost insulting to call it an asset, because they're not a resource, they're not an asset. People are the company. So that's where I base all of my work, and both in business and outside. And what else do I do apart from business? Well, quick thing, what I've done in business. I've set up EPAM. I worked at IBM, where I run the biggest IT project that IBM had. IBM took over Allianz. I'm sure you've heard of the Allianz, the insurance company. IBM has taken over their entire IT infrastructure. Everything that Allianz had in server rooms, IBM has taken over. 120 data centers around the world, consolidated into 5. And I was in charge of putting together a team that would do that. 63,000 servers, 23,000 different applications on that. So I did that. I set up for SolarWinds, I set up their Polish operations, the development company here in Poland. And for SKK, I took over a 20-year-old company that needed to wake up. Needed to change, needed to move forward, because had an average employment of 11 years in the technology department. Now, there are some technology companies that haven't been around for 11 years, let alone have people that have been employed for 11 years. So they needed a bit of a shake-up and a bit of a transformation. So that's what I've been doing most recently. So that's in business. Privately, that's me in my other life, as the head coach of the Kraków Football Kings. American football. Yes, American football. Yes, in Poland. I know it's the first thing people think, and then hear my accent and think, that English accent and American football, this just doesn't make sense. I played American football myself. Of all places in England. I made the national team in England. They even gave me a passport so I could play for England because I'm Polish. And they realized 10 days before the European Championships that I didn't have a British passport. So they said, "Oh, how are you going to play for us?" I said, "I don't know, that's your problem. You invited me." So 10 days later, there you go, here's a passport. It's amazing what sport can do. So back then, the British passport was worth something. So that's, and then I got a scholarship to go to America, and I did my MBA in America, and I taught Americans their own sport, which is probably the funniest thing. I was a coach in America teaching Americans their own sport, which is a really cool thing. What else apart from that? Scouts. I'm a scout leader. I'm a scout master in the Polish Scouting Association. I've built 2 troops, or rebuilt 2 troops, one in London and one in New York. Yes, Polish Scouts. It's a continuation of the Scouts after the war. As you know, all of our leadership had 2 choices during the war. Either got shot in cutting or had to end up in a different country. So a lot of our leaders who managed to avoid cutting ended up emigrating to other places, and the Scouts also emigrated. Wherever, like Anders' army, wherever they went, kids went along with them. So the continuation of the Polish Scouting Association is in London, and there are troops all around the world. Australia, US, Canada, Argentina, South Africa, all around Europe. And these are Polish Scouts these are kids that are second generation, that were born in these countries, that wanted to keep their roots because they didn't have an option of coming back to Polska. So they're all hoping that eventually, it would only take a couple of years, 5 years at most, and they'll all come back. It took 50 or so, but that organization carries on. So I was a scout leader in that organization. So what is American football? This is a picture, it's a real picture, taken actually just around the corner from here. Narodowy Stadion Rugby here in Gdynia. And this picture was taken 2 years ago. As you can see, Seahawks, that's the local team here. And on the other side, that's Zygmunt, that's Mateusz, and I'm somewhere in the background. This was in the national championship 2 years ago when we beat the Gdynia team. Oh, shoot, I'm in Gdynia.
You have a former player from the Seahawks.
Oh, excellent, cool. So I'm sure we'll have a conversation afterwards. Now, why am I saying about this? Talking about this? Because we had a great season 2 years ago, and then a tragic season last year. This is what happened at the stadium. Same picture, same place. You can see us with a championship. I'm somewhere in this picture. Superb season. Really, really, really great time. And then this was the year after. As you can see, right here at the bottom, Kraków Kings. Out of 8 games, 3 wins and 5 losses in 1 year. Then the very next year, one of the biggest hang-ups you could have after a championship. So the question is, what happened? Yes, other teams improved, but essentially our team was the same. And then what's happened this year? This year we're back onto the winning track. In a week and a half, we're in a national championship again. We have won every single game this year. We just won the semi-final by the score of 42-0. And secretly, I'm hoping that we're going to win the final. So this is what I want to talk to you about. What happened in that team? It's essentially the same players. Nothing's changed as far as their physical ability. The change was in me and in my failure in management, in what I didn't notice that a team needed. So let's start at the beginning. What happened with the Kings? Who are the Kings? So I'll go back so you can see this picture. I took over the team 4 years ago. Guys were hungry. They wanted to win. They needed a leader that was going to take them to that championship. So I stood in front of the guys and said, guys, if you do exactly what I tell you and work as hard as you can, I will bring you a championship in the second year. In the first year, we will make the playoffs. In the second year, we're going to win the championship. So just follow me. Do exactly what I tell you, and we will do this. And they believed. They believed and they did, and that's exactly what happened. We won a championship in the second year. Now, what we needed to do in the third year was something different. In the third year, the team changed, the team evolved. And this is exactly the same thing that happens in business. All of our teams evolve. They don't stay the same. Over time, our teams have different needs. And we have to, as leaders, we have to recognize what a team needs at a particular time. What my team needed in the third year was to find motivation within itself, to find internal leaders who will move the team forward. So I'll show you a little picture here. This picture reminds me of the biggest mistake that I made in the third year. This is a list of, these are captains that are coming out for a coin toss. There are 4 captains on the team, and this was their responsibility to come out before every single game for a coin toss. Guess what other responsibilities they had as captains? None. Absolutely nothing. And I completely didn't see this. In the first two years, they didn't need to have any responsibilities because everything was on me. I was the leader, and I said to them, just follow me, and we will win. In the third year, we needed something more. We needed the players to take more responsibility. We needed the captains to take on more responsibility, and I missed that. I missed the chasm between the coaches and the rest of the team was huge. As a coach, we can't be everywhere. I can't look at every single player doing every single exercise. I can't be in the gym with them making sure that they're working out. In the first 2 years, I didn't need to be because that passion was there, because I just said to them, believe in me, work as hard as you can, and it will be enough. Well, it was enough. We won a championship. But in that third year, we needed something more. We needed them to do it themselves, to move the team forward. So what I did in the third year, I did an internal leadership program. Before we even started the season, we looked at a list of all players, and we have 65 players on the team, and we nominated which guys we want to put in a leadership program. Now, this was a mix of players that are already leaders of some sort, but also guys that we want to develop for them to become leaders. And this was, we identified 12 players that were leaders, and we did various programs with them. We did various exercises with them. We got them together, did some communication. I got an external business coach to come in and do various trainings in order for them to learn how to communicate between themselves as the leadership group, and also for them to understand what it takes to be a leader, to give them some tools for them to become leaders. I did the same thing with the captains. I reduced the number from 4 to 3, only 3 captains, and I worked hard with them and communicated a lot with them for them to drive the team forward. I gave them responsibility. For example, one of the things that they have to do is, before a game, we always have a team get-together, some kind of a team integration event. And in the first 2 years, I planned those events. Whether it was bowling or I don't know, we went to a sauna together, or we went to watch a film together as a whole team. But when we had the leadership program, I put that over onto the captains. And I said, now you decide what event you want to do, and you make sure that the guys turn up. Because before it was me, as a coach, telling them you have to be there. Now, I backed out completely and let the captains do this. And they came up with different things, completely different exercises, and more players turned up. Because what was happening, I've noticed that, especially in that poor third year when we didn't have a good result, fewer and fewer players were coming to these integration events. I was putting pressure on them to turn up, and fewer and fewer were turning up. They were finding some excuses not to turn up. But when it came out of their own will, when it was their captains coming up with these things, we had a 95% attendance at all of these events. And they're important because they put the team together. Now, what was the difference? Now, where did I get this idea from? Well, one, I saw it in business, but I got it from an organization that's very, very old, that's over 100 years old, i.e. the Scouts. The Scouts do this in a very, very simple way. How many of you have been in the Scouts? Excellent. So you should understand the difference between Scouts and Venture Scouts. So harcerze and wędrownicy. Scouts are basically the age between 11 and 15. Now, what they need, they have a leader that tells them exactly what they need to do. He plans out every single minute. When we go to a camp, he plans out exactly what they're going to do, and usually try not to have any free time. Because if you give them free time, then they usually pick up sticks and start playing soldiers and knights and hitting each other, which is quite dangerous. So you need to plan out every single minute for them. But when they get to the Venture Scouts, when they're 15 years old, the Venture Scouts are from 15 up to 18, you can no longer do that. Because what does a teenager do? Immediately they rebel. They know better. They don't need you to tell them what they're going to do. They want to have their own ideas. So your leadership style needs to change. Now all you do is you put things in place and let them choose on their own what they're going to do. Same thing in business. Sometimes our teams get to a level where we can no longer tell them this is how you need to do things. We need to give them the freedom to come up with their own solutions. When a team is mature enough at a particular level, you coming and saying this is how you're going to write your code is going to be a nightmare. They're going to say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't coded for 20 years. You don't know how things are done nowadays. Well, you do, because you've got the experience of 20 years. You know exactly how the solution needs to be implemented. And all you do is just set the right environment for them to make the right decision. And this is exactly what I did. I let the captains and let the leaders make more decisions. I set up a structure. The truth is, I knew exactly what I wanted them to do. I just helped them make the correct decision. And that's the trick. It's really, I'm lucky because I've been doing it for 20 years in the Scouts. So this sounds a little bit like manipulation, but that's what it is. The team needed to feel like it was their own choice. And it's the same thing in business. There are times when we cannot tell the team exactly how to solve this problem. We just need to give them the infrastructure, give them the framework for them to make the right decision and just simply guide them. Then they'll take that and really take ownership in that project and move forward. I'll give you a business example. When I was at IBM, I decided to set up the team in a different way. When we were taking over the infrastructure, we had to, first of all, IBM brought me in because they realized that they were moving too far away from their customers. They were implementing this program called Customers First. The problem was that at IBM, in a delivery center, everything was in silos. So you had your infrastructure people in Windows servers, in Unix servers, your database people, your mainframe people, data backup and recovery, and everybody was separate. So when you were in a Windows team, you had 20 different clients, and to you it was just a server. You didn't really know what was on that server. You didn't care. You just had to make sure that that server works, and you had a particular SLA, and that server needed to be fixed within an hour or 10 hours or 24 hours, whatever. Sometimes something on a tier 1 level is not as important on a tier 2 level when you know the context. So for example, when you get an error from a server on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and you know that server handles the printing of tickets for trams, that's probably a little bit more important than, I don't know, a 5-star restaurant that's got a Michelin star that pays you a huge amount of money to make sure that their menu is online all the time. He's going to be going to that restaurant at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's not that important. But they're a tier 1. Their SLA is at the highest level. But you know that maybe I'll leave that one a little bit later. I want to make sure that people can buy tickets in the morning because the impact is going to be much greater on this. Now, IBM didn't have that luxury because nobody really cared because they didn't know what was on a server. So they brought me in for the Alliance projects that I almost built my own kingdom so that we put the customers first. So what I did is I decided when I built my management team, my leadership team, I wanted to make sure that the emphasis is on them, that it's not about me as the leader, which I did in the first 2 years of the team, where I needed to step up and say, okay, just follow me. I wanted to build this team a little bit differently. I wanted them to take ownership and not to keep looking at me, especially because I wanted the customer to realize that this wasn't about one person, about a bottleneck with me. Some superstar is going to come in and make everything great. No, it's going to be about a team that's going to take care of them. And I put a lot of emphasis on them. And I remember the very first time Allianz flew over to Poland to have a meeting. And I had 6 managers, each of them in a different technology. And I said to them, look, I want each one of you to make 2 slides, 2 PowerPoint slides. One slide is going to be on the technology in which you're implementing and the structure of your team, and the other side about you personally, who you are. So they all prepared it. We put it onto one slide deck, and as we were preparing for the meeting, one of the guys says, well, what about your slide? I said, there isn't one. I said, well, why not? You're the leader. I said, about not important. It's all about you guys. You're the most important thing. I'm just here to say hello, introduce you, and you guys are going to be doing all this. Because in every other situation, it's always the leader that comes up and schmoozes the client, and there isn't any real value to that. So they realized, okay, great. And that's exactly what I did. And first question the client said, I got up and said, right, this is welcome welcome to Kraków. This is your team, and now they're going to get up and talk about their teams, their structure. It's not about me because I'm not important. I'm just here to make sure that I get rid of any bottlenecks. But the most important people here are these guys that you're going to work with directly. And I literally backed off, and then they went and did their presentation. Now, what impact did that have? Before, I had, I don't know, about 15 requests to fly over to the client to meet with the various teams. Suddenly, after this meeting, all those were cancelled, and they were moved onto my team. Suddenly, they wanted those guys to turn up and meet the client instead of me, which is exactly what I wanted. Because what is the point in me going over, talking to the service guys, bringing the requirements, going back and saying, yeah, Franek, here's the requirements, go and deal with it. And then he's going to come to me and say, well, can you arrange this? And the direct communication needed to be done. And I remember Allianz for the first time said, now we understand what the whole idea of customer first was. We feel that we're not just speaking to one person that has a million people behind him, we're actually talking to the right people. So this is all from sports. I learned that at a particular time, it wasn't about me anymore. I needed to pass it over onto a team. And the results speak for themselves, because the team needs to drive this forward, the team needs to move this forward. The most important thing that I want you to remember is this picture. This is a real picture. This is one of the most powerful pictures I think I've seen, because it says so much. Because I implemented the leadership program, it was no longer me inspiring a guy that was having a tough time. It was the guys themselves. And I'll give you a little story what actually happened in this picture, because it's a really incredible story. This is Darek, who's one of our receivers. He catches the ball. He runs routes and catches the ball. He's great in practice. I mean, really, really sharp, catches every single ball. As long as it's somewhere near him, one-handed catches everything. It's brilliant. He gets to a game, there's some kind of a block in his mind, and especially if he drops that first one, then for the rest of the game, we can forget about throwing the ball to him. He just drops them, the rest of them. We tried various things. I tried everything I could in order to inspire him, to calm him down. I did various exercises. Now, it's going to sound arrogant, but I mean, I've coached for a few years. You know, I've got one championship as a coach. I've got 4 championships as a player. I've played for 8 years. I coached in America. I've got all this baggage of experience, and I couldn't inspire the guy to become a better player. What it took is one conversation from this guy. He came to me before one of the games and said, look, can I take Darek to the side and talk to him? I said, yeah, go for it. If you can, whatever you can come up with. And what he did is he took him to the practice field and threw him a couple of balls. And obviously, we were on the practice field. Darek caught everything. And he said, Darek, look, you catch everything. Now we're just going to go into a different field. It's just 100 yards from where we're doing this. You cool? Yeah. Best game he had. Best game in the history of our team. Caught every single ball, had over 100 yards, won the game for us. That moment was the pivotal point that changed his career. This year, he's having a career season. And it all stemmed from this one moment, that one of his peers was able to do this. And all of this because I enabled our leaders to do this. In the first 2 years, this would have never happened. None of our leaders would have stepped up to do this because that infrastructure wasn't in place. Once I've set that up, I could back off and let the guys do these types of things. And I'm sure a lot more of these things happen. I don't see them because I don't need to. Now I can focus on other things, making sure I get rid of other roadblocks and the guys inspire themselves. A little example, I wanted to check up a little bit on our players to see if they're going to the gym. So I said, look, we have 9 coaches on the team. Can you, all of you guys, and because there's 60 players, all of you please put in at what time you're going to be in the gym and in which gym so that we can sort of go around and make sure that you're doing the right exercises. And I thought we were going to have to chase them up and get this done. Suddenly, there was a message from 2 of the leaders, guys, get your shit together, this needs to be filled in. Suddenly, the leaders themselves went to the gym to check up on them instead of us. We as coaches didn't have to do it. And I didn't tell the leaders to do this. They suddenly realized they took this onto themselves because they realized this is the way to move forward. All I did is put this in place. This would have not happened in the first 2 years. I'm very angry at myself that I didn't implement it in the 3rd year, that I only implemented it this year because we missed the season, but we all learn. So luckily, Lucky we implemented this year. The results are there because that will happen this year. There's a date here that I want to change to this year, and even if we don't win in the final, this season has already been a success because the leaders have understood, they've stepped up, and I was able to spend more time with the coaches, educating them instead of the players, and now the coaches can do their job better. So you need to takeaways from this presentation. You need to look at your team and see what does your team need. Is it a young team that needs a strong leader that's going to tell them what they need to do? Or is it a team that's already evolved and now you need to back off and just simply empower them? And these are the different types of leadership. Are you an autocratic leader that's going to be strong and tell them what they need to do? Or are you going to be more liberal, more democratic leader where you're going to hear their opinions and let them make their own decisions? These are very, very important things you need to look at. Neither is correct, neither is wrong. It depends on the situation, and that's very, very important. And also you need to look at yourself and make sure you're doing it in the right way. You might want to be a liberal leader, but if your team is not ready for that, if you didn't recruit the right people for that, then it won't work. Having a liberal leader in Indian outsourcing doesn't really work. Okay, they need to be told exactly what to do, and they need to test it. In other environments, it does. So remember, when you're building a team, decide how you're going to run the team. Is it going to be autocratic, or is it going to be liberal or democratic? Choose the right people for it. And remember, the team will evolve. If you start off with a team that needs a strong leader, that team might evolve over time. Don't miss it. I missed it by a year, and we lost a potential championship. But luckily, we're back on track. Any questions?
Guys, going for the questions. The first one is, what was the reason to switch from 4 captains to 3?
I really didn't like. I wanted to have 2 captains, to be honest. To me, 4 is far too many. I went to 3 because we have in American football you have 3 main formations. You have offense, you have defense, and you have something called special teams. Special teams is basically for kicking, punting, and things like that. So I wanted to have a captain on each one of those formations, so that each formation saw that they had a leader that was always looking after that formation. How do you find time for all the work?
Your balance, work-life balance.
The more you do, the more time you have. Seriously, that's what I found. When I had nothing in my life, just work, I had time for nothing. But suddenly, when the more responsibility you have, the more things you have to put in your calendar, the more structure you have to put in. Suddenly the time appears. The most important thing is to find something that you're passionate about, because then it's no longer work. It's no longer tough. It's fun. You simply enjoy it. I love work. I love working with people. I love coaching. All of it is just a pleasure. I don't look at the time. You know, the reason why I'm no big deal that I turned up here, because before I turned up here, I went to practice. My operation was at 8 in the morning. They let me out of hospital at 6:45. At 7:15, I was at practice. They wanted me to stay an extra night. I said, oh, no way, I need to be at practice. Because I needed to show them that I care that much. And it was very, very important to me because I haven't missed a single practice this year. But it's all about passion. As long as you're passionate about people and what you do, or whatever you do, time finds itself.
One more, maybe?
When you step back to you. What I did is I made sure that people understood that the channel directly to me is still there. If they want to speak to me directly, that they can. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how a structure of an American football team works. We have the head coach, we have 2 coordinators for offense and defense, and then we have position coaches for every single position. American football is a very, very specialized sport. There are players that will spend their entire career never touching the ball. Okay, and frankly, they don't care because they have a responsibility. There was a really cool article that one of our players wrote called "The Invisible Half a Ton." Niewidzialne pół tony. There are 5 guys usually on a team that most of them usually weigh above 100 kilograms. So 5 of them is half a ton. They have one of the most important roles. They protect the guy that is the quarterback, that throws the ball, that hands off the ball. They are key. Those guys never touch the ball. But their role is absolutely crucial. If you have the right offensive line, then that you start building a team from that. That's the most important aspect. So it's very, very high specialization. So the coaches, so each position has their own coach. I'm very lucky. I have 8 assistant coaches on our team. So it's really cool. So what they have, the players understand that primarily the first point of contact they have is their leader. Now what I've also done is not only do we have here's an important thing. I never told the team who is in the leadership program. This was a very important thing. Because I didn't want them to be appointed as leaders. I wanted them to earn the fact that they're leaders. I wanted people to realize who the leaders are. There isn't a list of anywhere that says leaders. If I've ever had to meet with them, it was never in front of the team. So it wasn't like, oh, I see those 12 people, those are the leaders. I've never done that because I wanted them to understand that they need to earn that respect, they need to earn that leadership through their actions and not through me simply appointing it. So this was a very, very important part. The only people that were appointed is captains, but that's a little bit different. And I made sure that whenever possible, in every single position, I tried to speak to the guy that was the leader whenever I needed things done. So I wouldn't necessarily speak to the whole group. I would speak to one guy and say, look, can you make sure that this gets done? And then move on. So I help them that way. But only once they've started sort of stepping up. And that was very important. So then first they can speak to one of their leaders, then they can speak to their positional coach. If they can't get through the position coach, they can speak to their coordinator, and if not the coordinator, then me. So every full structure is in place.
Bravo.
Thank you.